Hello students, I welcome you all to this special talk on Indian economy questions for IAS Prelims Examination. And today I'm going to talk about 31 expected questions for UPSC Prelims Examination. And my name is Vishrut Abhinna. I basically come from civil service background. And prior to my civil service stint, I had also worked as an assistant professor at a university. I have now long been associated with IAS mentoring and coaching programs for almost 2 decades, even more than 2 decades. And several of my students are in high positions in civil service. I have also been associated with mock interview sessions for some time. And I had also been NTSE scholar. Now, Indian economy, as you know, is a very vast field, and in the IAS examination nowadays, UPSC is constantly changing its pattern. But you can definitely say that this year as well, we can expect around 25 to 30 questions from Indian economy. And for that reason, I have selected 31 questions for you, 31 expected questions on Indian economy for you. Of course, it will give you a good exposure on Indian economy particularly, and definitely if you are very intent and you listen to the talk very carefully, you can certainly make it in the examination as well. So I am going to talk about these 31 expected questions, and the first question of the day is, which of the following items are beyond the ambit of goods and services tax? And goods and services tax, there is going to be certainly a question on this. Electricity, land, aviation, and turbine fuel. So here we find that all the items which are given, electricity, land, aviation, turbine fuel, they are all completely beyond the ken of goods and services tax. In fact, if you look at it, therefore, for this, D is the correct option. And alcohol is not within the purview of goods and services tax, and exempted. Alcohol is also exempted. Alcohol from goods and services tax was a key request put forth by state governments when the tax reform was being implemented across the country. Other major items that are beyond the ambit of GST are land, electricity, petroleum products. That includes petrol, diesel, and turbine fuel, aviation turbine fuel. So these 5 items are completely beyond the ken of goods and services tax. Now, the second question I have brought for you today is regarding let's see these statements. Cooperative banks involved in the activities related to banking are covered within the meaning of banking company. This is the first statement. Parliament does not have the legislative competence to provide for procedure for recovery of loan under SARFAESI Act. Now, SARFAESI Act, there is going to be a question this year, and SARFAESI Act is effective only against secured loans where banks can enforce the underlying security. Now, these 3 statements are there, and as we can make out here, we have to find that which of the following statements is not correct. Please read the language carefully. Which of the statements is not correct? So you find that only statement 2 is not correct, because Parliament is fully competent to legislate and provide for the procedure for recovery of loans under SARFAESI Act. Now, SARFAESI, what is SARFAESI Act? That also we will understand briefly. So to say, therefore, only statement 2 here is incorrect. Other statements are correct. Cooperative banks involved in the activities related to banking are covered within the meaning of banking company. So specifically, Supreme Court has also ruled on this, that cooperative banks are covered within banking company definition, and SARFAESI Act is effective only against secured loans, for the recovery of secured loans. So here we find that, first of all, it was in news because, let's see, first statement is correct, second is not correct. Supreme Court has held that the cooperative banks involved in the activities related to banking are covered within the meaning of the banking company, firstly. and Parliament has legislative competence to provide for procedure for recovery of the loans under SARFAESI Act. Now, SARFAESI stands for Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest. Now, here this is basically for a recovery of loans, that is, if some asset of the bank, that is, if some loan of the bank is likely to become NPA, non-performing asset, and if it becomes NPA, in that case, the recovery becomes difficult at times. There, SARFAESI Act comes into play. Statement 3 is correct. It is effective only against secured loans, right, where the banks can enforce the underlying security. So it means there is some underlying security and that security can be sold off and the loan of the bank can be recovered. It promotes the setting up of assets reconstruction companies and asset securitization companies also to deal with the non-performing assets. The non-performing assets का मतलब होता है that if the loans they become bad loans or bad dates, I mean they are not being repaid by the loanee, in that case it becomes NPA. So NPA accumulated with the banks and financial institutions talks of that. Securitization and reconstruction of financial assets and enforcement of security interests. This act enables banks to reduce their NPAs by adopting measures for recovery or reconstruction of the loan. Now, a brief synopsis, that is synopsis of the SARFAESI Act 2002, if you look at it, securitization and reconstruction of financial assets and enforcement of security interests. This Act 2002 allows banks and financial institutions to auction properties, residential and commercial properties, when borrowers fail to repay their loans. So this is the gist of the SARFAESI Act, and it enables banks to reduce their non-performing assets by adopting measures for recovery of the loan or for reconstruction of the loan. Cooperative banks. Now, this recently, this Supreme Court 5-judge Constitution bench headed by Justice Mishra, it had said that in their opinion, the framers of the Constitution couldn't have said and couldn't have confined the meaning of banking to only particular definition as given in the Banking Regulations Act 1949. The word banking has been incorporated in entry 45 of list 1, and in one particular case, like Rustam Kowasji Cooper case of 1970 verdict, it had vividly left no room for doubt that banking done by cooperative banks is covered within the ambit of the entry 45 of list 1, that is the union list of 7th schedule. So that means that this is an important landmark judgment regarding SARFAESI Act and its applicability in the case of cooperative banks, and therefore you can expect this year a question on that. Consider the following statements regarding the Eurasian Group. The Eurasian Group, also called the EAG, was in news. The Eurasian Group, EAG, established recently as an associate member of the FATF, Financial Action Task Force. The primary goal of the EAG is to assist member states in implementing FATF 40+9, that is 49 recommendations, and EAG comprises of 9 countries including India, Russia, Japan, and US. So now which of the above statements are incorrect? That is the thing. So we find that statement 1 and statement 3 are incorrect. Only the primary goal of EAG is to assist member states in implementing Financial Action Task Force 49 recommendations. This is a correct statement. But member countries, it's not a correct statement. And let's see like what it says. So here B is the right option. Now here we understand that statement 1 is incorrect because EAG was established in 2004 and is currently an associate member of the FATF. Now statement 2 is correct because its primary goal of EAG is to assist member states in implementing 40 anti-money laundering recommendations and 9 special FATF recommendations on combating terrorist financing. These are total 49 recommendations of FATF, that is Financial Action Task Force, and EAG, the Eurasian Group, being an associate of that under the aegis of FATF, is implementing that. And statement 3 is incorrect because EAG comprises of 9 countries, which includes India, Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and finally the Belarus. Now these 9 countries only, therefore it doesn't include USA, and therefore the third statement is wrong. So we can see that this is going to be an important thing for this year's examination, IES examination. Financial Action Task Force students is a very important international body, and this action task force, Financial Action Task Force, works primarily in order to minimize or to reduce or to eliminate money laundering and also terror funding. Ways and means in the international economy to minimize and eliminate such tendencies. So it's a global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog. It's a watchdog. It finds that where such economic activities of different countries are resulting in such things and how it could be prevented. So it's an intergovernmental body. It sets international standards primarily that aims to create to prevent these illegal activities, right? That harm the society and the nations. As a policy-making body, FATF works to generate the necessary political will primarily to bring about national legislative and regulatory reforms in these areas. So it's a very, very important international body in this field, and it is a much needed international body, particularly nowadays. So Financial Action Task Force, FATF, is also known by its French name, Group d'Action Financière, is an intergovernmental organization which was founded in 1989 on the initiative of G7. G7 is primarily an informal group of 7 countries that includes the USA, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and of course the United Kingdom. And this is an important group which primarily together, its member countries represent 40% of the global GDP and 10% of the world's population. It's a very powerful political international informal group to develop policies primarily. I'm talking of FATF. FATF, it was founded in 1989 on the initiative of G7 to develop policies to combat, means to fight money laundering primarily, and subsequently terror financing, to prevent ways and means to find methods to prevent and stop terror financing. That is also included. In 2001, its mandate was expanded to include terrorism financing as well. So its headquarters are in France, in Paris. Now, EAG, the Eurasian group we are concerned with being here in India, it also primarily is intended to combat, means to fight money laundering and financing of terrorism. The Eurasian Group on Combating Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism is an FATF-style regional body, right? It is also FATF-style regional body. And the EAG was established in 2004. As we can see that FATF was established in 1989, but the EAG was founded in 2004. It's currently an associate member of FATF, right? EAG was created for the countries of Eurasian region, not included in the existing FATF-style regional groups, and is intended to play an important role in reducing the threat of international terrorism and ensure the transparency, reliability, and security of the financial systems of the member states and their further integration into the international infrastructure for combating money laundering and terror financing. This is so important this year that now these incidents are increasing, and therefore there is an international concern about them, and Government of India is also highly concerned about it. So the members and meetings as for the founding conference was held in Moscow, right? And then subsequently it was attended by 6 founding countries: Belarus, Kazakhstan, China. Please remember China is a part of it. Belarus, Kazakhstan, they were all erstwhile USSR republics, right? Russia, Tajikistan. So this is going to be a very important question this year, most likely. Money laundering. What is money laundering? You should understand briefly. Money laundering, students, is the process of changing large amounts of money obtained from crimes such as drug trafficking into originations from a legitimate source. Illegal or illicit money, slush money obtained from illegal means like drug trafficking and human trafficking and a lot of other illegal activities, smuggling, etc., Now, when the money from these origins is converted into white origins, means origins which are from legitimate sources, that is called money laundering. Money laundering. Just like we launder the clothes and we make dirty or black clothes, white clothes or clean clothes. So dirty money is converted into clean money by money laundering. So this is the way, and to prevent that, now international watchdogs are there in India. India is a member of the Eurasian group as well, which is the scope of money laundering is very vast. Actually, in the past, the term money laundering was applied only to financial transactions related to organized crimes. Now, today's definition is often expanded by governments and international regulators, such as in the US office also, Comptroller Auditor General. Now, the Comptroller of Currency to mean any financial transactions which generate an asset or value as a result of illegal act, which may involve actions such as tax evasion or false accounting. That means the scope of money laundering in recent years, the world over, has been expanded, and it includes major tax evasions and false accounting practices by national and multinational groups and financial entities. Here, question number 4 I brought for you about the capital adequacy ratio. CAR is a measure of the amount of banks. Now, which of the following statements you have to find out are correct, right? I'm talking about question number 4. Capital adequacy ratio is a measure of the amount of a bank's core capital expressed as a percentage of its risk-weighted assets, right? So obviously, this is a correct definition of CAR. As per the RBI norms, Indian scheduled commercial banks are required to maintain 12% CRR. This is wrong statement. As we know, that this is not 12%, this is 9%. Only RBI has the authority to decide on capital adequacy ratio in Indian banking system. That is not correct. Right. Only RBI, when this word only appears in a statement, always feel a little skeptical about it. Now, that means that out of the given statements, only one statement, first statement is correct. So A is right option. The Reserve Bank of India has recently cancelled the license of Mumbai-based CKP cooperative. The bank failed to meet the regulatory requirements to maintain a minimum capital adequacy ratio of 9%. I said this is 9% and the reserves. The statement 1 is correct. CRAR, also known as capital adequacy ratio, is the ratio of bank's capital to its risk. See, bank undertakes more risk compared to its capital, it is likely to go into insolvency. So to prevent it from going into insolvency, it is necessary that international norms are fixed, and banks are supposed to follow these Basel norms. Basel 1, Basel 2, Basel 3 norms are there, and banks are supposed to follow these norms. In India also, we are following these norms under the aegis of RBI and CRAR, that is the capital adequacy ratio for commercial banks, is fixed at 9%. Now, it is a measure of the amount of bank's core capital expressed as a percentage of its risk-weighted assets. So, whatever loans, etc., it gives, right, they are its assets, and they are against certain. Every loan has a risk. So, risk-weighted assets, they call it. So, they assign weights to these different assets, right? And the core capital means finally the assets and the liabilities, that difference will be the net worth of any bank, for example. So the ratio should not be less than 9%, so that it is prevented from insolvency. Statement 2 is incorrect, with the Basel III norms stipulate a capital to risk weighted asset of 8%. However, RBI norms, they stipulate for the scheduled commercial banks this ratio to be 9%, right? So statement 3 is also incorrect, is decided by the central banks and the bank regulators at the same time, right? So it prevents commercial banks from taking excess leverage and becoming insolvent in the process, right? Insolvent means going bankrupt, not being able to sustain its operations, and failing in the achievement of objectives, right? Insolvency primarily means that. CRAR, therefore, as I said, this refers basically to capital to risk-weighted asset ratio, that is capital adequacy ratio, or ratio of the bank's capital to its risk. Bank cannot take unduly, long or heavy risk. If it takes heavy risk, it doesn't have sufficient capital to sustain that. Then, if it leverages more on its existing capital, then it's likely to be unsafe for the bank. So CRAR is the acronym, basically, as I said, that the capital to risk weighted assets ratio, standard metric to measure the balance sheet strength of the banks, basically. Basel I, Basel II, and Basel III are the global capital adequacy rules that prescribe a minimum amount of capital a bank has to hold given the size of its risk-weighted assets, right? So more the loans it gives to corporate and entities, more the risk it has, right? More the capital, core capital it is supposed to have, right? If it doesn't have sufficient core capital and it taking undue leverage in giving more of loans, then it is venturing into a higher risk area. To prevent that, that ratio is standardized as 8% internationally. In India, this for scheduled commercial banks, it is 9% as per RBI guidelines. The old rules mandated banks to back every 100 rupee of commercial loans with 9 rupees of capital, irrespective of the nature of these loans. The new rules suggest the amount of capital needed depends on the credit rating of the customer primarily, right? But in any case, the standardization by the RBI have to be followed. Basel I, you should have an exposure about Basel I norms. In 1988, Basel Code was signed. It's primarily focused on credit risk and appropriate risk weighting of assets. So assets of banks were classified and grouped in 5 categories according to credit risk, carrying risk weights of 0%, for example, such as cash, bullion, home country, debts, etc., treasuries, etc., 20% for securitization, such as mortgage-based securities, with AAA rating, and 50% for municipal revenue bonds and residential mortgages, 100%, for example, for most corporate debt and some assets given no rating. So, I mean, Basel I, Basel II, Basel III, Basel Committee, basically, the banking supervision was formed in late 1974 under the aegis of the Bank of International Settlement located in Basel, Switzerland, right? And the banks with an international presence are required to hold capital equal to 8%. That is, their capital adequacy ratio is 8% of the weighted risks. Now, bank's capital, what is a bank's capital? You must have a fairly good idea about bank's capital. A bank's capital is the difference between a bank's assets and its liabilities. Basically, that is what the capital is, right? So whatever assets it is holding, whether it's current assets or permanent long-term assets, whatever assets it is, non-current or current assets, total assets minus all the liabilities. So it represents the net worth of the bank or its equity value to investors, because we know in the balance sheet, left side will be assets, right side will be total liabilities and the shareholders' capital. So the difference between the assets and the total liabilities will amount to shareholders' capital, which amounts to net worth of the bank. So that this asset portion of the bank's capital includes cash, government securities, interest earning loans, etc., right? And the liability section of a bank's capital includes the loan loss reserves and the debt it owes. The bank's capital can be thought as the margin to which the creditors are covered if the bank would liquidate its assets. So that is basically the understanding about this. Question number 5, students, is about many times we read about the RBI taking steps to curb the menace of inflation, mudrasfiti, right? To reduce or to minimize मुद्रास्फीति, इन्फ्लेशन को कम करने के लिए RBI जो है वो काफ़ी प्रयास करती है. उसके लिए a question specifically है, because it's an evergreen question. In all exams you'll find that a question on control of inflation is appearing in one form or another, invariably, right? It is necessary for you to understand, for that matter, all the dimensions which are concerned with inflation and what measures the Reserve Bank of India undertakes in order to control inflation, right? So in this context, which among the following will not help RBI in controlling inflation? An increase in the bank rate, of course, it would control inflation because it would minimize liquidity in the environment. An increase in the Reserve Bank's ratio requirement, also, of course, this will also have an effect on the inflation, checking inflation. If increases there in the ratio requirement, liquidity, the availability of the liquidity would be less, and consequently, it would check the inflation. A purchase of securities in the open market certainly cannot be a check for inflation, because this would amount to increasing the liquidity, and that in turn would rather increase or fuel inflation more. Increasing the repo rate, of course, is one of the key measures in the monetary policy of RBI to control the inflation. Now, these areas, as I said, now obviously here C is the correct option, as we can make out. A purchase of securities in the open market, purchase of securities in the open market will inject more of liquidity in the market and thus fuel the inflation further. Means it will not check or reduce inflation, it would rather increase inflation. Now, you must understand certain basic banking terms like what is repo rate, reverse repo rate, current repo rate. These terms are very necessary, basic terms basically of the monetary policy. Repo rate refers to the rate at which the commercial banks borrow money by selling their securities to the central bank, that is the Reserve Bank of India, right? In other words, if they want short-term money, then they will borrow this money from RBI against securities, right? RBI would fix a rate of interest for that. That is called repo rate, right? Repo, incidentally, means repurchase option primarily, because there is a repurchase agreement at the same time that these securities the banks would purchase back at a predetermined price. So this is primarily to maintain liquidity in case of shortage of funds or due to some statutory measures, statutory requirements bank always have. They have to maintain, for example, the cash reserve ratio, 4% presently, right, for that purpose. It is one of the main tools of RBI to keep inflation under control. So that means basically if the CRR or repo rate I'm talking about, if repo rate goes up, right, repo rate goes up, the inflation will come down. So now how does repo rate work? It's very simple, that if repo rate is more, then banks are discouraged to borrow more from the Reserve Bank, and that would reduce liquidity in the market. And once liquidity is less, then naturally inflation will be controlled, because money is less, the demand will be less, the inflation will be less, right? So when you borrow money from the bank, the transaction attracts interest on the principal amount in general, right? आप कहीं से भी बैंक से पैसा लोगे तो आपको ब्याज देना पड़ेगा. This is referred to as the cost of credit. तो credit का cost है. Similarly, banks also borrow money from RBI during a cash crunch on which they are required to pay interest to the central bank, and this is called the repo rate. Very simple. I mean, in simplified terms. So technically, repo stands for repurchasing option or repurchase agreement. It's an agreement in which the banks provide eligible securities, as the treasury bills, to the RBI while availing overnight loans. And this agreement to repurchase them at a predetermined price will also be in place, and thus the bank gets the cash and the central bank gets the security. So इस टेबल से आपको ये पता लगेगा कि रिसेंट टाइम्स इस प्रकार से रेपो रेट आप देखोगे ये 2019 से 2019 से और 2020, तो ये रेपो रेट कॉन्स्टेंटली कम हो रहे 6.25%, it is coming down to 4%. As you can make out that monetary policy, at least 4 times a year RBI is supposed to announce its monetary policy. Generally 2 months to 3 months every time it would come up with a monetary policy. The statutory requirement is a minimum 4 times in a year it must announce its monetary policy. So you can see, you can make out here that the repo rate is consistently coming down, and this is a good sign in a way that repo rate is coming down. It's a good sign that inflation is under control, right? That means that if inflation is under control, that means the growth which we want, that growth is not going out of control, and we can achieve better growth with controlled inflation. People will not feel the pinch of it, right? So current monetary policy, as per current monetary policy, the repo rate is 4%, the reverse repo rate, which is the opposite of it, right? Now in the repo rate, banks borrow money from RBI. In the reverse repo rate, RBI borrows money from the banks. So here there is a difference, right? It is always, reverse repo rate is always less. It's 4% is repo rate, 3.35% is the current reverse repo rate. Now students, before I proceed further on the questions, now Unacademy, as I know, first of all, I'm a faculty with Unacademy. My name is Vishrut Abhinna, and my referral code, you must remember, is VI10. Now, if you use this referral code, you become entitled for a number of benefits, and you can unlock a number of discounts and number of other benefits from the Unacademy platform. And at the same time, the current subscriptions with Unacademy are, so to say, at a very high discount. As you can make out that these three products now, the combo price is very less compared to the original price, and there are enormous savings. This is the right time for you to go about with these subscriptions, and the price is likely to be hiked soon. Now, first year batches, now one year batches for UPSC Civil Service is starting from 15th of September, and learner's journey for 2022 batch, 7 months plus 2 months plus 3 months. So you can make out for 1 year, like it is spread out. Very meticulous programs are designed basically for the systematic growth and systematic learning of candidates with us. And comprehensive batches for 2022 also, bilingual batches are starting 15th of September onwards. 2-year batches. The 2-year batches are also starting from 15th of September. And 2023 batch is a 2-year batch, is also starting in a very systematic manner. You will have variety of, so to say, segregated and integrated at the same time programs, so as to ensure that your learning is faster, better, and comprehensive. Comprehensive batches for 2023 bilingual in English batches are also starting 15th of September, and optional subjects also being launched from September. Now you can see that a variety of subjects with lead mentors of Unacademy, better interconnect and interface and better communication on the subjects now, because we offer you a number of such facilities for a better interaction with the mentors. You can directly talk to me, you can directly talk to any one of our lead mentors, right? And now even 0% interest rate credit is also available, and it is online, it is approved in no time, no hidden charges. 20 books are provided for free for 1 year plus subscription, worth almost more than $10,000. And then UPSC Combat program, right? This is a great program. You are all invited to join this program, but you can rather have scholarships worth up to 4 crores, right? And this prelims special program, you use this code VI10 to unlock all the necessary benefits under this program as well. You can enroll this every Sunday 11 a.m. this goes. The students, let's talk about question number 6 now. Which of the following banks is also known as Ibrd? Now, International Bank, Asian Development Bank, Bank of America, or the World Bank? So we know there is a World Bank. It's a World Bank. Why? Because World Bank, it's a group, right? How many international financial institutions are there? You'll see the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development is an international financial institution that offers loans to middle income developing countries primarily. And Ibrd is the first of the 5 member institutions that compose the World Bank Group. What is World Bank Group? That also you should know. World Bank Group, jo students, World Bank Group. There are 5 bodies in that. World Bank Group is a family of 5 international organizations that make leveraged loans to developing countries. These 5 organizations kya hai? Ibrd, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the International Development Association, IDA, International Finance Corporation, IFC, and the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, MIGA, and finally the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. These are 5, so to say, 5 organizations, financial organizations, which are coming under the rubric of what is known as World Bank Group, right? Now, next question is question number 7. Which of the following is related to microeconomics? There are 2 dimensions of economics, macroeconomics and microeconomics. So this specifically question I have framed because you'll find invariably every year micro and macroeconomic dimensions of the economy, they are being asked in one way or another. You should have a fairly good idea about what is microeconomics and what is macroeconomics. You can also join my plus courses on economy and polity and other subjects. But economy, you can join my plus course and the MCQ series, which I'm shortly going to run on Unacademy platform soon. If you like, this entire teaching style, you should rather immediately join, because I can tell you that several of my students are into civil service, whom I have directly mentored for a long time. In fact, some of them are in very high positions, and every year, of course, I produce civil servants. Now that what I'm saying, that you remember this, my code VI10, VI10. So of course it doesn't stand for Vodafone Idea. It stands for my name, Vishrut, right? My name is Vishrut Abhinna. Right. Anyways, which of the following is related to microeconomics? The size of the national economy, inflation, unemployment, or behavior of individual economic units. You see, behavior of individual economic units, as you can make out, it is obviously a thing which is concerned with microeconomics, right? Size of the national economy, or inflation, or unemployment, they are all basically top-down economic approaches which are used for macroeconomic considerations. अब इसमें करेक्ट आंसर तो ये बिहेवियर ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल इकोनॉमिक यूनिट्स है, और माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स इज दैट ब्रांच ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स विच डील्स विद बिहेवियर ऑफ इंडिविजुअल इकोनॉमिक यूनिट्स of the economy, such as individual households, individual firms, or individual industry. It revolves around the determination of prices of individual commodities and its factors, right? Macro economics में क्या difference होता है, that you should understand that economics is broadly divided into these microeconomics, macroeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of individual business decisions, while macroeconomics looks at the decisions of countries and governments as a whole. Right. So these two branches of economics appear to be different, but they actually are interdependent and complementary to each other. Right. Many overlapping issues exist between the two fields. Please remember that there is no watertight compartmentalization between the two. They are interdependent and complementary. Microeconomics studies individual and business decisions, while macroeconomics analyzes decisions made by countries and governments that we have seen. Microeconomics focuses on a bottom-up approach, and macroeconomics focuses on a top-down approach. And investors can use microeconomics in their investment decisions, while macroeconomics is an analytical tool mainly used to craft economic and fiscal policy. Right. इसका scope क्या है? Microeconomics are the resources in the country fully utilized. Now, microeconomics, I'm telling you, what should be the macroeconomics. What we deal with macroeconomics is unemployment in the country, inflation, economic growth, international trade, national output, national expenditure, level of savings. So these are all macroeconomic. As you can make out that these are gross aggregatizations of economic processes at the national level. Right. Macroeconomics doesn't confine itself only to national level. Macroeconomics also goes beyond that to international level. It is a macro view of the international economy, or it's a macro view of the national economy. So it's a broad top-down approach. And micro view, so basically concerned with resources, resource allocation, capacity utilization, right? And primarily, the day-to-day decisions of the management in resource management and in management within the companies. Right, and supplies and profits of the companies, and so it is all concerned with the micro issues. It is all concerned with the macro issues here, these larger issues. Now, question number 8 is, what does a good with positive externalities known as? Now, this is an important question, particularly like keeping in mind, the present emphasis of the government. What is a good? A good means an economic good with positive externalities known as jilted goods, public goods, merit goods, or snob goods. So obviously it is a merit good. You can make out merit good and demerit goods are two different types of goods. What is the distinction between merit and demerit goods? Positive externalities, merit goods. Government is always keen to provide help to certain specific sections of people. Right. On merit goods include things like health, right, education, right. They're merit goods. So what is merit goods? Now, C is the obvious answer of this question. Merit goods. Now, concept of a merit good was introduced in economics by Richard Musgrave. It's a commodity which is judged that an individual or society should have the basis on the basis of some concept of need rather than ability and willingness to pay. So merit goods have a positive externality, and merit goods are provided generally by the government to certain sections of a society, right? Unlike in the case of pure public goods, merit goods are not provided to the entire society, obviously. Rather, they are given to certain targeted groups, and they have positive externalities like providing health to needy people, education, and other things. The concept of merit goods assists governments in deciding which public or other goods should be supplied, right? For example, certain goods and commodities that the public sector provides for free or very cheap, or because the government, a whole lot of government schemes are there, right? Government is providing, gas, for example, gas connection under Ujjwala scheme, and government is providing, health, in the health sector, a lot of allocations are there, education sector allocations are there. They are all primarily intended to provide merit goods to the people. Demerit goods, on the other hand, it's a good or service whose consumption is considered unhealthy or degrading or otherwise socially undesirable due to some perceived negative effects on consumers themselves in general, in particular, and society in general, right? So it could be it could be overconsumed if left to market forces. For example, demerit goods include tobacco, alcoholic beverages, recreational drugs, gambling, junk food. They are all demerit goods. Demerit goods have negative externality. They are degrading and harmful for the individual and in particular, and also for the society as a whole in general. So merit versus demerit goods and their distinction and their implications for the economy, that generally you should understand. The next question, number 9, consider the following statements regarding deposit insurance and credit guarantee corporation. Was in news, and these three statements are there. We have to make out that which one of the statements are not correct, right? The government has set up deposit insurance and credit guarantee corporation, that is DICGC, under RBI to protect depositors' interest if a bank fails. So this is a very correct statement. That is the purpose or objective of DICGC. DICGC last revised the deposit insurance cover to 10 lakh, raising it from 1 lakh. This is a wrong statement because we know this is not 10 lakhs, this is 5 lakhs. And the premium paid by the insured banks to the corporation is paid by depositors. No, the burden is not on the depositors but on the banks. So obviously 2 and 3, these statements are wrong. So which statements are not correct or which statements are wrong? So B is the correct option. Statement 1, on the other hand, is right because this deposit insurance is providing insurance protection to the depositor's money by receiving a premium. So this is basically the whole this deposit insurance and credit guarantee, DICGC. This is DICGC, right? It's providing insurance protection to depositors' money by receiving premium, and the government has set up deposit insurance and credit guarantee corporation under the aegis of RBI to protect depositors if a bank fails. Statement 2 is not correct because it's last revised to the insurance cover is maximum to 5 lakhs, February 2020, raising it from 1 lakh since 1993. Statement 3 is also not correct. It charges 10 paise per 100 rupees of deposits held by a bank, and the premium paid by the insured bank to the corporation is paid by the banks, and it is not to be passed on to the depositors. The burden of payment of premium is not on the depositors but on the banks themselves. Out of their profits, they have to do this. Now, DICGC, I have already told you, is a wholly owned subsidiary of RBI, right? It was established on July the 15th, 1978 under Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation Act 1961 for the purpose of providing insurance of deposits and guaranteeing of credit facilities. So it's a great institute which protects the interest of depositors with various banks, right? Now, question number 10, consider the following statements regarding Prime Minister Swanidhi Yojana. This is an important Yojana for this year. Prime Minister Swanidhi Yojana, Prime Minister Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi has been launched for providing affordable loans to street vendors, right? This is first statement. And the vendors can avail a working capital loan of up to 20,000, which is repayable in monthly installments to the in the tenure of 1 year. This 20,000 figure is wrong, right? So obviously this statement is wrong. It is 10,000, and it has been launched by the Ministry of Rural Development. That is also wrong. So question number 10, students, only one statement 1, that is correct. So as we can make out, statement 1 is correct. D is the option here, and this one is the Prime Minister's Street Vendors Atma Nirbhar Nidhi is for providing affordable loans to street vendors for 50 lakh people, including hawkers, vendors, telewalas, rediwalas, and all these people are going to be benefited from this scheme. And the vendors can avail a working capital loan of up to 10,000 rupees, which is payable in monthly installment in a tenure of 12 months. Statement 3, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development is launching this scheme. So statement 3 is not correct, right? Because here statement 3 is launched Ministry of Rural Development. Instead, it is being launched by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Has launched this scheme. So obviously, the correct option here is only one statement is correct. 2 and 3 are not correct. Now come to the next question, number 11. Prime Minister Modi launched the technology platform Champions to empower which one of them, right? Banking sector, automobiles, MSMEs, or none of them. So obviously here, as we can know, it is for MSMEs. MSMEs. Champions stands for creation and harmonious application of modern processes for increasing the output and national strength. You see, this is a very, so to say, very meaningful and very, intelligently thought out program, Champions. And you can make out by seeing its full form itself, it speaks a lot. Creation and harmonious application of modern processes for increasing the output and national strength. That means it is basically intended for increasing the efficiency as well as effectivity, and also it is intended to increase, it to unleash processes which would enable national strengthening. This is a great program. This portal basically is making the smaller units big by solving their grievances, encouraging, supporting, helping, and hand-holding. It is a real one-stop shop solution for MSME ministry. It's a great platform that way, right? Now, question number 12. Center has announced Mudra Shishu loans, the Mudra Shishu loans for small businesses and cottage industries so that shopkeepers do not suffer due to COVID-19 pandemic, right? The government has given tremendous support in these difficult times, and a lot of leadership has been provided to the nation in last 1.5 years, so to say, and government has come up with a number of schemes. Now, Mudra Shishu loan, consider the statement regarding Mudra Shishu loan under this scheme. Now, I'm talking of question number 12, and we have to find that which are correct statements under the scheme. Collateral free loan up to 10 lakh can be availed in Shishu loan. So obviously this limit is not correct. The government will offer 2% interest rate subvention for a period of 12 months to prompt loan pay under the Mudra scheme. This is correct because 2% interest rate subvention is there for a period of only 12 months, right? So that means that only statement 2 is correct, and this 10 lakh limit is not right. This is Mudra Shishu is only up to 50,000. Now here, so obviously B is the correct option here. The center has announced Mudra Shishu loan for small businesses and cottage industries, so shopkeepers do not suffer due to COVID-19 pandemic. And statement 1 is therefore incorrect. Micro Units Development and Refinery Agency, Mudra, was started to refinance loans, right? Refinance, not direct finance, is refinance. Already some loan is there that can be made up, right? Refinance loan of up to 10 lakh given by banks and other lending institutions to small borrowers. Under the scheme, collateral free loans of up to 10 lakh, they fall under 3 categories. Shishu, that is up to 50,000. Kishore, that is 50,000 to 5 lakh. And Tarun, that is more than 5 lakh, 5 to 10 lakh. Now, Mudra Shishu loans up to 50,000, 10 loans 50,000 to 5 lakh Kishore, and third category 5 to 10 lakh Tarun. Now, statement 2 is correct. The government will offer 2% interest rate subvention for a period of 12 months to prompt the loan payees under the Mudra scheme. The decision is expected to bring much needed relief to small borrowers. It's a great scheme for small borrowers because it offers not only interest rate reduction for 12 months, but it also offers, so to say, very subsidized loan within a limit for up to 5 to 10 lakhs, right? Mudra, Kishore, and Tarun. Question number 13, students consider the following statements regarding recent changes in the definition of MSME sector under Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Now, this is an important question, and we have to make out which of the above statements are not correct or incorrect, right? Now, for an enterprise to come under the category of MSME, it has to fulfill both investment and turnover conditions. Obviously, this is correct. And enterprises with investments up to 10 crores with a turnover of less than 100 crores will now be called medium units. Earlier it was not. This is not correct. We'll see what are the limits. And also under the new definition, differentiation between manufacturing and service-based produce, distribute and supply MSMEs are being removed. This is correct. So obviously, as we can make out in question number 13, only statement 2 is not correct. Statement 1 is correct. Statement 3 is also correct. And here, so obviously, D is the right option. Statement 2 is incorrect. MSMEs will now be called micro units if they have investment up to 1 crore and turnover of less than 5 crores. Remember this, 1 to 5 crores. That is for the micro units. The definition earlier was investment criteria of up to 10 lakhs for service and up to 25 lakhs for manufacturing. This distinction between service and manufacturing has now been done away with, right? It is applicable for both, right? For an MSME to be defined as a small unit, its investment limit has been raised from 5 crores to 10 crores with a turnover of less than 50 crores. And this applies to all MSMEs, including the service enterprises, which earlier came under the investment of 2 crores. This is a great, recategorization which has been done because it has expanded. It has expanded the scope under the new definition for MSMEs, and it will provide them a leeway for better growth. Now, enterprises with investment of 20 crores with a turnover of less than 100 crores will now be called medium units. Right? Earlier, the investment limit for medium unit was 10 crores and service enterprises 5 crores. Now, statement 1 and 3, therefore, are correct. It is to be noted that for an enterprise to come under the category of MSME, it has to fulfill both investment and turnover conditions. Also, under the new definition, the differentiation between the manufacturing and service-based MSMEs is being done away with, right? So this is another thing to understand is what is the turnover concept. Turnover, sometimes you may get confused. What is turnover? Simply is how quickly, it means how quickly a business conducts its operation, how quickly it can utilize its inventories and various, economic processes to turn them into profits. And again, buy the inventories and turn them into profits, buys the inventories and turns them into profit. So over the year, in how many cycles it does, or 1 year, in how many cycles does it do? So now, more the number of such cycles, more will be the turnover, right? That will rather be an indication of the efficiency and effectiveness of the business operations of any business establishment. So turnover is basically an accounting concept, as I mentioned, that calculates how quickly a business conducts its operations. Primarily, that is the thing. And the most common measure of corporate turnover looks at ratios involving accounts receivables and inventories. How effectively the inventories or the requirements for various manufacturing requirements which are kept as inventories are utilized in order to transform them into the finished product, and then marketing of the finished product, and then earning profits, and then again buying the inventories and going into the same cycle. How many times we can do that in a business environment? That decides the turnover. In the investment industry, turnover is defined as percentage of a portfolio that is sold in a particular month or a year. If you keep on holding a portfolio and do not invest, reinvest, right? I mean, bring forth and put in and bring forth, So unless you do that, number of times your investments would lie dormant actually. So if you want to increase turnover, then you have to, you know, so to say, the portfolio should be sold in a particular month, and then out of profits, then you increase on that. Now, Moody's, next question I brought is this international credit rating agency, Moody's Investor Service, has downgraded the government of India's foreign currency and local currency long-term issuer ratings. Consider these statements regarding this. When India's sovereign rating is downgraded, it becomes costlier for the Indian government as well as all Indian companies to raise funds. That is the first statement, which of course, as you can make out, seems to be right. A rating downgrade means that bonds issued by the Indian governments are now riskier than before. So which of the above statements are correct? So obviously, as we can make out, both the statements are correct here because they surround the basic objective definition and basic core definition of, so to say, the downgrading by a credit rating agency like Moody's. Of course, other credit rating agencies are also there, like the Standard and Poor, one of the oldest credit rating agencies, USA based primarily, right? Which is another. But anyways, no, I'm talking of Moody's here. This question is important. You can make out now here both the statements are correct. It was in news because Moody's they have downgraded Government of India's foreign currency and local currency long-term issuer ratings to Baa3 from Baa2, and this and they stated the outlook to be negative. I mean, that is fairly obvious because after the corona phase, all economies the world over are struggling to recover basically from the shock and impact of that corona phenomenon. So obviously, this is not to say something very surprising. Implications kya hai uske? A rating downgrade means that bonds issued by the Indian government are now riskier, obviously, than before because weaker economic growth is there, worsening fiscal health is there. That undermines the government's ability to repay. So basically, credit rating means your ability to repay. If you are not able to repay, your credit rating is downgraded. That's the meaning of credit rating, right? Whatever the credit rating. Now, next question is concerned with the Global Economic Prospects report is released by which one of the. So obviously, we know that World Bank is issuing the Global Economic Prospects report. The World Bank released its Global Economic Prospects June 2021 report. Global Economic Prospects is the World Bank's semi-annual flagship publication on the state of world economy. So it basically gives an indication on the state of world economy. Global Economic Prospects June 2021 report, as you can make out now, this is an important thing for this year. Global economy is set to expand 5.6% in 2021. Now, this is remarkable to note. It's the strongest post-recession pace in 80 years. Now, this is something surprising. Generally, what happens when the economy is depressed, right, due to some unusual phenomena, as it happened in the present case due to corona, right? So then the rebounding is also faster. Why? Because a lot of dormant forces suddenly become active in the economy and they want to recover their lost ground. And as a result of that, the pace of development is likely to be faster once the recovery, comes into its own speed. So this recovery is uneven and largely reflects the sharp rebounds in some major economies. I'm talking of the Global Economic Prospects, June 2021. I'm talking about that, which is primarily a World Bank release, which is semi-annual flagship publication of the World Bank. In many emerging markets and developing economies, obstacles to vaccination continues to weigh on activities. It's happening everywhere, actually, right? Except a few very developed countries, it is happening everywhere. Mostly, the developing and the underdeveloped countries are facing this major problem in vaccination field as well. And last year's per capita income losses will now be fully unbound in about 2/3 of emerging markets and developing economies, EMDEs we call them. The global outlook remains subject to significant downside risk, including the possibility of additional COVID-19 waves, the financial stress, high debt levels. Policymakers will need to balance the need to support the recovery with safeguarding the price stability and fiscal sustainability are major concerns of the government, and our government has taken a number of steps to safeguard the fiscal sustainability and to ensure price stability in these times, right? And it has largely been successful in that, and to continue efforts towards promoting growth enhancing reforms. Now, students, this is very, very important. You just have an idea about Global Economic Prospects report of June 2021. Just a fairly good idea you should have about it. It's going to help you in the exam. Now, question number 16, Shama Prasad Mukherjee port has recently been approved. This obviously, as you can make out, Shama Prasad Mukherjee, West Bengal. So obviously West Bengal. The Union Cabinet has given approval to rename the Kolkata port as Shama Prasad Mukherjee port. The Kolkata port, the first major port, and the only riverine port in the country. Riverine means river along the river. Only riverine port in the country, Shama Prasad Mukherjee port. Earlier it was called Kolkata port. It is situated on the left bank of Hooghly River at about 203 kilometers upstream from the sea. This is important actually. That this is the only riverine port in the country, Shama Prasad Mukherjee port. Earlier it was called Kolkata port. Now, question number 17 talks about consider the following statements regarding empowered group of secretaries. Now, this is an important question for this year, empowered group of secretaries. Now, question number 17 I'm talking about, and we have to find out the correct statement. Its objective is to provide investment support to global investors by bringing synergies and ensure timely clearances from different departments and ministries. That is one of the major stumbling blocks, that clearances from concerned ministries and departments, they take a lot of time, and at times that frustrates global investors. So in order to attract global investors, in order to improve the ease of doing business rating, in order to improve the environment, in order to ease out on the hurdles, right, to remove the hurdles, it is necessary do all this to bring about synergy. And so in that direction, government has set up what is known as the empowered group of secretaries, and its chairperson will be a finance minister. Now, as we can make out that the chairperson of this is an empowered group of secretaries. Finance minister will not be the chairman here. So obviously, it is asking which is the correct statement. Question number 17, only statement 1 is correct. Here, cabinet secretary, basically, I will show you the composition. Cabinet secretary is going to be the chairperson of that. So we'll come to that. It was in news because the cabinet has given its approval for setting up of empowered group of secretaries and project development cells in different ministries and departments of Government of India for attracting investments. This is now the world over, particularly in the developing countries and even in the developed countries, attracting the investors, global investors, is a major plan to ensure that we remain linked to the global economic growth. Firstly, we are able to have the benefits of advanced technology. Second thing, and also at the same time, we are able to spur our economy to a great extent. So in that direction, a number of countries have done marvelous job. Of course, India has to do quite a lot more in that direction, but certainly, like we are on the right path, and this is a major step in that direction, likely to appear in the examination this year. The objective of this group, the empowered group of secretaries, is to provide investment support to global investors by bringing synergies to ensure timely clearances from different departments and ministries. Cabinet secretary, as you can make out the name itself, the empowered group of secretaries. Right? Cabinet secretary, the highest position in civil service, is the chairperson. Secretary, Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, is the member convener, and CEO of Niti Aayog is the member, and the Secretary, Department of Commerce, member, Secretary, Department of Revenue, member, Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, member, Secretary, Department of concerned department to be co-opted. Whichever is the concerned ministry's concerned department, that secretary will be co-opted. So that's an important question for this year. Question number 18, consider the following statements regarding general financial rules, GFR. The GFR, general financial rules, every government officer, government employee knows about general financial. It's so important because it lays down the basic canons of financial propriety, how you should utilize government finances as if they were your own, right? Not wasting a single penny, because this is public money, and how to use public money for that. Canons of financial propriety are laid down in general financial rules. General financial rules are based on canons of financial propriety. And here now this question is regarding GFR. Now, they lay down the general rules applicable to ministries and departments, and detailed instructions related to procurement of goods are issued. So it is asking statement one, the government has notified amendments to general financial rules to ensure that goods and services valued more than rupees 100 crore are being procured from domestic firms. Now, this limit is not correct. As we know, this is 200 crores. This limit is not correct. I am talking of question number 18. So only statement 1 is right because it gives basically the objective definition of this. So obviously here this limit is 200 crores. The statement 2 is not correct. The government has notified the amendments in GFR to ensure that goods and services valued less than 200 crores, not 100 crores, are being procured from domestic firms, a move which is going to benefit the MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises, immensely. Statement 1 is correct because general financial rules are a set of rules that deal with matters that involve public finances. And first issued in 1947, bringing together all existing orders, there were instructions that pertain to financial matters. They lay down the general rules applicable to ministries and departments, and detailed instructions related to procurement of goods issued by the goods that are issued by the procuring departments, broadly in conformity with the general rules, right? While maintaining flexibility to deal with. No, basically, as I said, they are based on canons of financial propriety, that every government servant and government officer should use the government money as if he would have spent his own money. Right? How you spend your money, you don't let a single paisa go waste if it is your personal money. Right? GFR, in essence, it says that you should use government money also same way. Not a single paisa should go waste. Right? Now, that is the ultimate thing, which is the highest thing, most ethical thing to do, and which every government servant is supposed to follow. Question number 19 is Cabinet has approved historic amendment to Essential Commodities Act. Now, this is, I'm talking of one of the 3 farm laws, 2020. Consider these statements regarding that commodities like cereals, pulses, oilseeds, edible oils, onions, potatoes will be added to the list of essential. Now, this is wrong. They've been deregulated now. They've been deregulated, not added. So statement 1 is obviously wrong. Recent amendments are aimed at freedom to procure, hold, move, distribute, and supply. It will attract private sector and foreign direct investment into agriculture sector. Obviously, that is an obviously correct statement. So only statement 2 is correct. 1 is obviously not right. And here, as we can make out, 1 is not right, which with the amendment to the Essential Commodities Act 1955, commodities like cereals, pulses, oilseeds, edible oils, onion and potatoes, they will be removed from the list of essential commodities, deregulated. And statement 2 is correct because this will remove fears of private investors of excessive regulatory interference. Now, one of the major problems in Indian economy is excessive regulatory interference. Still, like, we have come a long way, and our reforms, a lot of reforms have taken place, particularly after 1991, where we had what is known as globalization and privatization and liberalization. After that, a lot of reforms in the Indian economy, it has done great benefits to the Indian economy. But still, excessive regulatory reforms, they inflict the economy, and they are stymieing the growth of Indian economy. They are rather constraining its growth. So in their business operations, the freedom to produce, hold, move, distribute, supply, that this will naturally attract more private sector investment and direct investment to the agricultural sector. But in situations such as war, famine, and extraordinary price rise, natural calamities, right, there the government will come into play and will regulate. Means it would then impose stock limits in that case. Such agricultural foodstuffs can be regulated. However, the installed capacity of a value chain participant and the export demand of an exporter will remain exempted from such a stock limit imposition, right? Because once keeping their capacity utilization, they have purchased, right? If you disallow them, then they suffer losses. And then once these things start happening, again the same thing, that there are heavy interference by the government, heavy regulatory interference and all that. So that, keeping that in mind, this thing has been exempted from that to ensure the investments in the agriculture field are not discouraged. The imposition of stock limit primarily here, 2 points you should understand. A stock limit, now of course, a imposition of stock limit, the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020 empowers the central government to regulate the stocks of essential commodities under certain circumstances. This act requires the imposition of stock limit on certain specific items based on the price rise. Stock limit may be imposed only if there is 100% increase in retail price in horticulture produce and 50% increase in retail price in non-perishable agricultural food. Non-perishable है तो 50% इंक्रीज उसका लिमिट है, पेरिशेबल है फ्रूट्स वेजिटेबल्स इस तरह के आइटम्स है तो 100% है, राइट. पेरिशेबल मीन्स द हॉर्टिकल्चर प्रोड्यूस्ड आइटम्स. An increase will be calculated over the price prevailing immediately preceding 12 months में जो है and the average retail price of the last 5 years whichever is lower. वो एक फॉर्मूला वर्कआउट किया है, आपको पता होना चाहिए. इसके ऊपर 100% क्वेश्चन आने वाला है. मतलब ये जो मैं बता रहा हूँ क्वेश्चन आपको, मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि यूपीएससी का पेपर, दिस इज आई मीन माई बेस्ड ऑन माई एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ 25 years I am giving you this paper. This is not, questions will be directly or indirectly related to what I am saying, right? So you listen to this video 2-3 times and also do your preparation that you are already doing. This is only going to help you. Remember, my name is Vishrut Abhinna and my referral code, ये ज़रूर ध्यान रखना, वो VI10. अभी Unacademy में you can go for subscriptions plus courses. You follow me up in my other videos also, right? And of course, your success becomes manifold more probable, right? You start following and you will see the results there yourself, right? Now what I'm saying, the Essential Commodities Act of 2020, Amendment Act, I should rather call it Amendment Act because it's an amendment of 1955 Act, provides that any stock limit will not apply to a process or value chain participant of agriculture produce if stock held by such person is less than the overall ceiling installed capacity of the processing. उसकी overall ceiling processing capacity उससे कम है, या demand for export in case of an exporter. ये बहुत ज़रूरी है क्योंकि otherwise फिर they will be discouraged from bringing in heavy investment into agriculture, which is badly required for Indian agriculture. You know that some of the farmers in our country, they are really on the verge of devastation, right? So agriculture reform alone can save them, and that is badly required. Now, value chain participant means a person engaged in production, in value addition at any stage of the processing, packaging, storage, transport, distribution of agricultural produce. इस सब चीज़ें जो मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ आज की टॉक में, ये बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट है. इससे आपको पूरा इंडियन इकोनॉमी का भी एक एक्सपोजर मिल जाएगा, करंट हैपनिंग्स का भी मिल जाएगा, और सबसे बड़ी चीज़ ये है कि आपको एक डायरेक्शन मिल जाएगी कि कैसे आपको आईएएस के लिए प्रिपरेशन करना चाहिए, क्या क्या एक्सपेक्टेड चीज़ें उसमें आएगी. और अब टाइम कम बचा है, प्रीलिम्स का एग्ज़ाम 10th of October को है, वेरी शॉर्ट टाइम इज़ देयर. So intelligently you have to prepare, selectively you have to prepare without losing sight of the main goal and target, because your goal is to become an IAS officer, and that goal definitely you can achieve. The only thing which is required for that is proper direction and consistent effort, diligence, right? उसकी दो चीज़ ज़रूरी है. कंसिस्टेंट एफर्ट यदि है, डायरेक्शन नहीं है, तो यू विल बी लॉस्ट, राइट. डायरेक्शन के लिए, इकोनॉमी की प्रिपरेशन के लिए ये टॉक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. इसको आप ध्यान में रखना, जो मैं बातें बता रहा हूँ तो आप ध्यान में रखना, उसके आधार पे और आगे आप एक्सपांड करके अपना प्रिपरेशन बहुत अच्छा करोगे. नाउ आई एम कमिंग टू नाउ क्वेश्चन नंबर 20. कंसिडर द फॉलोइंग स्टेटमेंट्स रिगार्डिंग द फार्मिंग प्रोड्यूस ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स फैसिलिटेशन एंड प्रमोशन एक्ट 2020. किसान आंदोलन इसी पे हो रहे हैं, और अब उसका पूरा एक वीडियो टॉक मेरा अलग से है, वो आप देख सकते हो. 3 फार्म लॉस के ऊपर वीडियो टॉक है, वो अलग से देख सकते हो. लेकिन ये क्वेश्चन आज के लिए बनाया है. अंडर इट द फार्मर्स एंड ट्रेडर्स विल एंजॉय फ्रीडम ऑफ चॉइस ऑफ सेल एंड परचेज ऑफ एग्री प्रोड्यूस. फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट है, वो तो ऑब्वियसली आपको दिख ही रहा है. आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ क्वेश्चन नंबर 20. वो दिख ही रहा है, एकदम करेक्ट स्टेटमेंट है. इट विल ऑल्सो प्रमोट बैरियर फ्री इंटर स्टेट एंड इंटर स्टेट ट्रेड, वो भी सही है. commerce outside the physical premises of the notified mandis, state agriculture produce marketing committees, which are through the legislation. The farmers will not be charged any cess or levy, मतलब कोई टैक्स नहीं होगा उसमें, or for the sale of their produce under this act. तो सारे स्टेटमेंट्स ही इसके करेक्ट है, जैसा कि देख रहे हैं, ऑल आर करेक्ट. इसके न्यूज़ में होने का कारण यही है, फार्मिंग प्रोड्यूस एंड ट्रेड एंड फैसिलिटेशन प्रमोशन एंड फैसिलिटेशन एक्ट 2020, उसके ये बेसिक फीचर्स हैं जो आपको ध्यान रखने हैं. ये सब बेसिक फीचर्स हैं, राइट. और जो मंडी सिस्टम है वो बेसिकली उससे केवल शांता कुमार कमेटी का जो रिपोर्ट है मैं उसकी बात कर रहा हूँ. ओनली 6% फार्मर्स आर बीइंग बेनिफिटेड आउट ऑफ मंडी सिस्टम, दैट इज APMC सिस्टम, एग्रीकल्चर APMC, राइट, एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस मार्केटिंग कमेटी सिस्टम. तो ये इंपॉर्टेंट जानने के लिए है. इसको इन डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री when many farmers are not able to have access to an existing system, that system has to be changed. Now come to question number 21. Which of the given below statements is correctly matched? Revenue deficit की बात कर रहे हैं, effective revenue deficit की बात कर रहे हैं, primary deficit की बात कर रहे हैं. तो फिजिकल डेफिसिट में से इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट माइनस कर देते हैं तो प्राइमरी डेफिसिट आ जाता है. तो ये तो एकदम करेक्ट स्टेटमेंट हो गया, राइट. अब रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट और इफेक्टिव रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट में क्या डिफरेंस है? रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट का मतलब सिंपली हो गया कि रेवेन्यू द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर एंड द रेवेन्यू रिसीट्स, वो रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट है. तो इसको आप देखें, इट इज़ द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट एंड ग्रांट्स फॉर क्रिएशन ऑफ कैपिटल एसेट. तो ये गड़बड़ डेफिनेशन हो गया, तो रॉन्ग है. And effective revenue deficit, it occurs when the actual revenue collected by government falls short of the budget estimates. So ये तो cause है revenue deficit का, तो revenue deficit में ये definition जाएगा और effective revenue deficit में ये definition आएगा. That means which is correctly matched is only 3. Therefore, in question number 21, the only statement 3 is correctly matched. B is the correct answer. Statement 1 and 2 are incorrect because revenue deficit is the excess of revenue expenditure or revenue receipts, right? A revenue deficit occurs जब revenue collected by the government falls short of the budget estimates. मतलब खर्चा ज़्यादा हो रहा है, इनकम कम हो रही है, तो डेफिसिट होगा. तो ऑब्वियसली रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट का मतलब क्या है? इफेक्टिव रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट का मतलब क्या है? डिफरेंस बिटवीन रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट एंड द ग्रांट्स फॉर क्रिएशन ऑफ कैपिटल एसेट्स. ग्रांट्स फॉर कैपिटल एसेट्स जब होगी तो उससे आगे रेवेन्यू जनरेट होगा, तो फिर इफेक्टिव रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट कम हो जाएगा. इसका मतलब ये, आप कोई एसेट क्रिएट करते हो तो वो एसेट जो है, एक मशीनरी खरीदी तो उसकी प्रोडक्शन से आगे उसको आपको रेवेन्यू भी तो मिलने वाला है, तो उसको इफेक्टिव रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट में फिर उसका टू दैट एक्सटेंट कम हो जाता है. स्टेटमेंट 3 ऑब्वियसली इज करेक्ट. प्राइमरी डेफिसिट का मतलब ये है फिजिकल डेफिसिट में से इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट माइनस कर दें तो प्राइमरी डेफिसिट हो जाता है. तो गवर्नमेंट बजट जो होता है, रेवेन्यू बजट होता है, कैपिटल बजट होता है. रेवेन्यू बजट में रेवेन्यू रिसीट होता है, रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर होता है, राइट. और फिर आप इसको रेवेन्यू रिसीट को देखें, उसमें टैक्स रेवेन्यू, नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू होता है. टैक्स रेवेन्यू को देखें, डायरेक्ट टैक्स, इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स होता है उसमें. कैपिटल बजट को देखें, कैपिटल रिसीट और कैपिटल. ये एक ब्रॉड फ्रेमवर्क है जो कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट बजट को बताता है. रेवेन्यू बजट का मतलब ये है कि रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर और रेवेन्यू रिसीट्स होती है. रेवेन्यू रिसीट का मतलब क्या है? दैट डू नॉट हैव a direct impact on assets and liabilities of the government. और रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर का भी वो कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग मतलब है. कैपिटल रिसीट्स का मतलब क्या है? दे डिक्रीज द एसेट्स और इंक्रीज द लाइबिलिटी. तो फिर वो कैपिटल रिसीट्स के एग्जांपल्स मैंने यहाँ दिए हैं, जैसे डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट इन द शेयर्स ऑफ पब्लिक एंटरप्राइजेस, मनी रिसीव्ड फ्रॉम इन द फॉर्म ऑफ बोरोइंग्स और रीपेमेंट्स ऑफ लोन्स बाय स्टेट, सब कैपिटल रिसीट्स होती है. कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर्स दे क्रिएट एसेट्स और रिड्यूस लाइबिलिटी. एग्जाम्पल्स मैंने यहाँ दिए हैं, जैसे गवर्नमेंट का क्रिएटिंग एसेट्स सच एज रोड्स एंड हॉस्पिटल्स, और मनी गिवन बाय द गवर्नमेंट इन द फॉर्म ऑफ लोन्स टू स्टेट्स और रीपेमेंट ऑफ इट्स बोरोइंग, ये सब कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर है. तो इसको ब्रॉडली अंडरस्टैंड करना चाहिए कि एसेट्स एंड लाइबिलिटीज़ को इम्पैक्ट करते हैं तो कैपिटल साइड में चला जाता है, एसेट्स एंड लाइबिलिटीज़ को इम्पैक्ट नहीं करते तो रेवेन्यू साइड में. क्वेश्चन नंबर 22 स्टूडेंट्स इज रूरल इनकम्स आर जनरली लोअर इन इंडिया फॉर व्हाट रीजंस? लार्ज नंबर ऑफ फार्मर्स आर इलिटरेट एंड नो लिटिल अबाउट साइंटिफिक. ये एक इंटेलिजेंस बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है, हमेशा ये क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है इन वन वे और द अदर. Our large number of farmers are illiterate and know little about scientific agriculture. Prices of primary products are lower than those of the manufactured products. Investment in agriculture has been lower than compared to the investment in industry. तो obviously ये सभी statements जो हैं वो correct हैं, तो A इसका obvious answer हो गया. And in India जैसा हम जानते हैं farmers are illiterate है, they know very little about scientific agriculture. वो scientific agriculture से काफी revolution हो सकता है. Great farming techniques are available, right? But people do not know them. Most of the farmers do not know them. तो गवर्नमेंट को ये एजुकेशन प्रोग्राम जो है वो लार्ज स्केल पे लॉन्च करना चाहिए. प्राइसेस ऑफ प्राइमरी प्रोडक्ट्स आर लोअर देन दोज ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चर्ड प्रोडक्ट्स. ये एक नॉन फैक्ट है. इन्वेस्टमेंट इन एग्रीकल्चर इज वेरी लो and these regions are responsible for lower rural incomes. Question number 23, students, is debentures are short-term financial instruments which acknowledge debt obligation towards an issuer. तो debentures short-term नहीं long-term होते हैं. Financial terms के अंदर जो long-term debt instruments है उनको debentures कहते हैं. All debentures can be converted into shares and equities? No. Only convertible debentures can be converted into shares and equities. So that means none of them is correct. So which are correct means none is correct. So obviously I would say that D is the answer. Statement 1 is not correct because debentures are not short term but long term financial instruments which acknowledge a debt obligation towards the issuer. Some debentures have a feature of convertibility, not all, right? They are called convertible debentures into shares after a certain point of time at the discretion of the owner of the debenture, right? Statement 2 is incorrect because debentures can't be converted into shares or equities for non-convertible debentures. Only for convertible debentures they can be converted into shares and equities. Non-convertible debentures are used as a tool to raise long-term funds by companies through public issues, obviously. To compensate for that drawback, non-convertible, generally there is a higher rate of return on them compared to convertible debentures. Higher rate of return matlab higher interest rate is being paid by the company. डिबेंचर बोन्ड्स दोनों का कॉन्सेप्ट हमने अंडरस्टैंड कर लिया. कंपनीज यूज डिबेंचर्स व्हेन दे नीड टू बोरो द मनी एट अ फिक्स्ड रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट फॉर इट्स एक्सपेंशन. Question number 24, students, is the conduct of open market operations by the Reserve Bank of India invariably leads to what? So this is question number 24, and it is I'm talking of open market operations where Reserve Bank of India is selling securities, right? Reduction in foreign exchange, lower money supply, higher statutory ratios. Which of the following is given statement are not correct? Not correct. So here, question number 24, we find that none of the statements is correct. Statement 1 is not correct. Only when open market operations are used for sterilization, we see a change in the forex reserve. So if it is used only for domestic market, forex does not change. Obviously, that is obvious, right? Statement 2 is not correct because Reserve Bank of India purchases or sells government securities to general public in a bid to increase the stock of high-powered money in the economy. This is called OMOs, open market operations. So lowering the money supply is not always the case, right? Statement 3 is not correct. Statutory ratios remain unaffected by open market operations. It is decided independently by the monetary policy of the Reserve Bank of India. So this is an important question I brought about you. You can further do research on this. Time is not permitting me to explain each and every term here, right? So, but still, government securities are basically GSECs, right? Essentially, debt instruments issued by the government. These securities can be used both by the central government and state governments also, right? So, when you invest in such options, you generally gain a regular interest income. And since these investment products are backed by government, the risk associated with them is very negligent, very less, right? Different types of government securities include T-bills, treasury bills, cash management bills, then dated GSECs, gilted securities, and state development loans, right? In my plus class, you can join my plus classes, right, where we have got to have a broader definition and meaning of each and every aspect of economy. Right? I'm going to cover shortly one course on Indian economy for prelims, right? A kind of crash course based on questions primarily. The Union government has promulgated an ordinance to amend the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. About this code, question number 25 we are doing, and which of the above statements are correct? We have to check. Under it, the fresh insolvency proceedings against Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code will not be initiated against companies for defaults due to COVID-19. एक relief उनको दिया है. It is correct. Under this, an entity can seek insolvency proceedings against a company even if the default is only for 1 day. So as we can make out that here both the statements are correct. Statement 1 is correct. Statement 2, both the statements are correct. Statement 1 is correct. Under the fresh insolvency proceedings under Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code will not be initial or initiated against companies for defaults due to COVID-19. Default on repayment from 25th of March, the day when the nationwide lockdown began to curb coronavirus infections, will not be considered for initiating insolvency proceedings for a period of 6 months, which could be extended to 1 year. Now, statement 2 is correct. Under this, an entity can seek insolvency proceedings against a company even if the default is only 1 day. This is subject to the minimum threshold of 1 crore. Earlier, this threshold was only 1 lakh, right? So that way, the threshold has been raised. Now, question number 26, students, healthy and energy efficient buildings initiative recently was in news in connection with the India-USA. Now, this occasion of World Environment Day, Energy Efficiency Services Limited, in partnership with US Agency for International Development, USAID, US means United States Agency for International Development, MAT3 program, launched the Health and Energy Efficient Buildings Initiative to make workplaces healthier and greener. Health and Energy Efficient Buildings Initiative will address the challenges of retrofitting existing buildings and air conditioning systems. I mean, this is basically a green initiative in that direction, right? Now, which of the following are the indicators used by Ibrd to compute the Global Hunger Index report? Question number 27. What is Ibrd? That also we will understand. A Global Hunger Index now. So it uses undernourishment, child stunting, and child mortality, all three criteria, right? All three criteria for evaluation of Global Hunger Index. And this the indicators of undernourished population of under 5 children, very low weight for height, very thin child, stunting in under 5 children, stunting in very low height for age, and very short child, under 5 mortality rate. These all three criteria are used for that purpose. Global Hunger Index report 2000, it was created in 2006. Global Hunger Index was initiated and initially it was published by the US-based International Food Policy Research Institute. This FPC, Food Policy, International Food Policy Research Institute, and Germany-based Wealth Hunger Life, right? The Global Hunger Index measures hunger on a 100-point scale, from 0 being the best score and means no hunger, and 100 being the worst. Although neither of these extremes can be reached, obviously no country can have that extreme. The severity of hunger associated with range, severity क्या होता है इसमें? Low level of severity up to 9.9, moderate 10 to 19.9, serious, alarming, serious में है 20 to 34.9. तो इंडिया का जो 2020 का रैंकिंग है वो सीरियस में आता है, सीरियस, राइट. Alarming and very extremely alarming 35 to 49.9 and more than 50 is extremely alarming. तो इंडिया का 94th रैंक इसमें आता है, वैल्यू इसको 27.2, तो 27.2 आएगा, ये सीरियस, राइट. Question number 28, students, consider the following statements about the market intervention scheme. Very important. It's a price support mechanism for procurement of raw cotton, jute, copra, and in the event of fall of market price. This is wrong because they are already covered under minimum support price. The Food Corporation of India is responsible for implementing this scheme is also wrong, right? Which of the following statements are correct? Obviously, none is correct, neither is correct. MIS, intervention scheme, market, is a price support mechanism implemented on the request of state governments for the procurement of perishable and horticulture commodities, right? Mainly fruits and vegetables and all that, in the event of a fall in market prices. So statement 1 is not correct. The Department of Agriculture and Cooperation is implementing, right? And all agriculture and horticulture commodities for which minimum support prices are not fixed are generally perishable in nature and are covered under market intervention at the request of the state government. Central government ये provide करती है. MSP जो है 23 commodities के लिए होता है. MSP is a fixed price, is minimum support price, न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य. Fixed minimum support price fixed twice a year on the recommendations of CACP, Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices. It is a statutory body, submits separate reports for recommendation of these prices of Kharif and Rabi crops to the ministry. It's an independent body or autonomous body. It's the statutory body also. CSEP submits the recommendations to the government in the form of price policy reports every year separately for 5 groups of commodities. उसमें क्या क्या? खरीफ crops, rabi crop, sugarcane, raw jute and copra. Copra means dry coconut. और ये एमएसपी जो है, एमएसपी करेंटली फॉर 23 क्रॉप्स के लिए रिकमेंडेड होता है. उनके नेम्स मैंने यहाँ पे दिए हैं, वो आप देख सकते हो इसके अंदर. एंड एक इंपॉर्टेंट चीज ये है कि आफ्टर कंसिडरिंग द रिपोर्ट एंड व्यूज ऑफ द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स एंड ऑल्सो कीपिंग इन व्यू द ओवरऑल डिमांड एंड सप्लाई सिचुएशन इन द कंट्री, the central government takes a final decision on the recommendations of CSEP. Please remember, it is a recommendatory body. CSEP does not decide the न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य. It is the government which decides the MSP and CSEP only recommends, and government also takes into account the prevailing demand and supply situation. It also takes into account the overall economic situation and the views of the state governments. फिर वो डिसाइड करती है. 23 क्रॉप्स इसमें इंक्लूडेड है. उसमें क्या क्या है? उसमें पैडी, वीट, मेज, शोरगुम, पर्ल, मिलेट, बार्ली. ये ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा आपको. वो ये मतलब ये 7 सीरियल्स है इसमें, 5 पल्सेज है इसमें, 7 ऑयल सीड्स है. वो सब तरह के ऑयल सीड्स आ जाएंगे लगभग. सोयाबीन, सेसमी, सनफ्लावर, सेफ्लावर, नाइजर सीड, ग्राउंडनट, मस्टर्ड, सब. और 4 कमर्शियल क्रॉप्स इसमें, कॉपरा, शुगर केन, कॉटन एंड रो जूट. ये सब मिलके 23 हो जाता है. वो ध्यान रखना है. 29th question is consider the following statements regarding corporate tax. Corporate tax, as you know, is a direct tax on companies. This is a tax paid directly by the corporate entities to the government. Obviously, this is right. It is applicable to foreign companies only. No, it is applicable to both domestic and foreign companies. And it's levied by central and state governments. No, it is levied only by the central government. So which of these above statements? I am talking about 29. Only statement 1 is correct. So statement 1 is correct. Corporate tax is a direct tax paid directly by the corporate entities to central government on their profits. And statement 2 is incorrect. Corporate tax is a direct tax that is levied by on both domestic and foreign companies. Companies, both private and public, which are registered in India under the Companies Act 1956, are liable to pay corporation tax or corporate tax. Statement 3 is incorrect because tax is levied and collected only by the central government, not by the state governments. Question number 30, students, is considered a very important question for this year. It is consider the following statements about Financial Stability and Development Council, FSDC. It is chaired by the Union Finance Minister of India, correct? Its objectives are to strengthen and institutionalize the mechanism for maintaining fiscal stability and enhancing interregulatory coordination, as you can make out. It is a statutory body and funds are separately allocated to the council for undertaking its activity. No funds are separately allocated to this, nor is it a statutory body. So obviously what the question is, so we have to find the correct statements are only 1 and 2. Only 1 and 2. It's recently now the Union Finance Minister chaired the 27th meeting of Financial Stability and Development Council to review the global and domestic macroeconomic situation, financial stability and vulnerabilities issues. It was set up in 2010 by Indian government as an executive body. It replaced the high-level coordination committee on financial markets. And statement 3 is not correct because FSDC is not a statutory body and no funds are separately allocated for this council to undertake its activities. The Financial Stability and Development Council is an apex level body which is constituted by the government of India, as we know, and it is based on the recommendations of Raghunath Rajan Committee 2008. Finally, 2010, at the time of Pranab Mukherjee, this was set up as an autonomous body. It's an apex level body. It's not a statutory body. And this is India's initiative for better conditions. I mean, to be better conditioned to prevent such incidents in future, as happened, collapse of economy and number of other factors. Due to number of other factors, national and international and other factors. Now, composition of the council is chairman is the Union Finance Minister, and members, as you can make out, the Governor of Reserve Bank of India is one of the members. Finance Secretary, Secretary of Department of Financial Services, Secretary Minister of Corporate Affairs, and Chairman, Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, Chief Economic Advisor, Ministry of Finance, Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Chairman of Insurance Regulatory Authority and Development Authority, Chairman of Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, PFRDA, and Chairman Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board, and Additional Secretary, Ministry. It's a whole lot of big, top level functionaries are members of this. It's a great and high level institute you should keep in mind for this year. The last question, students, I have brought for you with reference to the compulsory licensing. I'm talking now of intellectual property rights. And in the intellectual property rights, consider the following statement. Patent owners loses his or right or patent once compulsory license is granted to different company. No. Whoever is the patent owner, he continues to retain the right, but some other country, if that medicine is to be manufactured, then under compulsory licensing, they can do that if their laws permit it. But of course, under the compulsory licensing, certain conditions are there, they must be met with, then it can be done. In India, it can be invoked only through health emergencies. No, even under normal times, it can be introduced. So both these two statements, in both Indian Patent Act 1970 and TRIPS, that is Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights Agreement of the WTO, World Trade Organization, has provisions for compulsory licensing. Yes. So question number 31, only statement 3 is correct. Compulsory licensing, students, is when a government allows someone else to produce patented product or process without the consent of the patent owner or plans to use the patent protected invention itself. जैसे medicine है या इस तरह की चीज है, by patent owner, but the patent owner won't lose his or her right over the patent. So statement 1 is not correct, and it is up to the national government to use this policy even during normal times, right? And both the Patent Act 1970 and TRIPS agreement has provisions for compulsory licensing. That is obviously necessary also. Under certain conditions, this license is granted. So students, I wish you all the very best of success. My name is Vishrut Abhinna, and you please follow me up in my further video talks. I wish you all the very best of success.